Welcome, everyone, and thank you for joining me and my very special guest. She is a Tony Award-winning actress who works effortlessly on stage, screen, and television. And she has just written, directed, and produced her first feature film, which will be released this fall. It's the political thriller Red Pill, which she also co-stars in with a dynamite cast. Please say hello to my friend, Tonya Pinkins.
Hey, neighbor, how are you?
I was going to say, I'm below you. You're upstairs. We could have done this outside in the veranda, right?
Exactly. We could be out there social distance with our masks and do it live, really live.
Well, we're live. Listen,
Live
first
in
of all,
person.
totally. Tonya, first of all, how are you and where are you?
I am in my apartment in the complex that we are neighbors in. And looking out at a beautiful sky after a lot of rain, and a lot of people have lost power and have been without power for a week. And I haven't lost power. Did you lose power?
No.
So we are extremely fortunate in the midst of this very difficult time for everybody that we still have power.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about this difficult time. We are now on our 148th day of quarantine. And I mean, what does that number mean to you? Like, how have you been handling the quarantine and dealing with it day by day?
Well, you know, the first couple of months, I had all 4 of my kids here and we were cooking all day and playing games all night. And it was just like, oh, this is going to end. And I put on the COVID-19 pounds. And then after about 2 months, it was like, oh, this is not ending anytime soon. You better start doing them 10,000 steps a day. Because the first 2 months, I didn't leave the house except to get groceries. I was like scared of everything. And now it's like, got to adjust to a new norm. This is the new normal. This week, terrified, went out to 2 meals with people who I hadn't seen in months, social distance mask. I also wear gloves, but after coming back home, I started feeling like I had a headache. I was like, oh my God, did I catch it? So it's very tense, it's tense, but trying to add little bits of normalcy as we go, but it's definitely stressful.
Yeah. What has amazed you the most and what has frustrated you the most during this time we're going through, especially the upheaval and everything else going on in our country? Talk about that.
Well, no surprise that artists have just been creating. And I think it's incredible that all this Zoom theater exists. And I think I read that one Zoom play had like 80,000 people watched it. It take you years to get that many people to watch something in the theater. And I think it's just going to make people more thirsty for theater. I think there was a lot of fear about filming television, but you know what? There is nothing like a live experience. We are animals. We crave communion. So I'm excited that I think that this time is going to make people thirsty to get back into live spaces once it is safe to do so. I think the biggest frustration of this time is just the fact that we don't know, like living in that unknown place of it really might be years before we feel safe to be live again, and learning to make comfort with the discomfort of, we're always living in an unknown, but we make ourselves feel secure about a lot of things. This is one that we can't even pretend any security about it.
As artists, we're A-type personalities. We're always looking at the next project. Will the next project happen? But I think everybody in America and in the world is sort of going through the same thing. It's sort of like the uncertainty is that level of anxiety that everybody still carries every day when you get up. Even with a happy face, you're like, oh, I'm a happy person. But today, still that uncertainty is there.
Yeah, I think that uncertainty, which is a reality, is higher for all of us. The closeness to that knowledge this pandemic has made it really, really something that we have to contend with every moment of every day.
Yeah. Well, I, like so many other people, are so excited about your brand new feature film, Red Pill. Now, before you and I start talking about it, let's show the audience the trailer.
Okay.
Everyone, enjoy Red Pill.
We are a majority in this country, and we're going to win the election.
Do you know what the red pill is? A red pill is someone who infiltrates a group and then destroys them from the inside. This place is spooky.
Take it easy.
You know what, guys? I'm going to go back tomorrow.
I think we should call the sheriff's office.
What is that? What do we do, Amelia?
We die. But we take some of them with us.
That is sensational. I have goosebumps all over again watching that. First of all, congratulations on making this, because you wore many hats on this film, right? I mean, talk about the hats you wore on making this film.
Producer, director, writer, actress, costume designer, scenic designer, negotiating all the contracts. Yeah, every job that there was to do, I was doing it. Sometimes I was even clapper. I was cooking meals for people until we got our caterer. I would be up cooking.
Well, I'll tell you, the trailer looks sensational. I cannot wait to see the whole film. What were the biggest challenges for you? I mean, first of all, I mean, you took this on yourself. This is such a beautiful project. I mean, you know, I'm sure the best way to do this is just say, I'm going to do this by myself, right? I mean, was that one of the greatest things for you of taking this on?
You know, I have a couple of friends who have films coming out now, and it's like the more people you have involved, the more opinions you have to answer to. So I greenlit my movie, and the buck stops with me. It's my taste. It's my choice. Yes, I have people I consult with, but ultimately I've got to please myself. And I've never had that experience really in my career. So that was like, oh, I like this. I like being the boss. Yeah, saying yes and then hoping that all the other people would say yes to me. And I'm a firm believer that when you say yes, kind of the universe says yes to you. So I greenlit my movie before I had this incredible cast that I wanted. I wrote this with Ruben Blades and Luba Mesa in mind. And then they invited me to their house for dinner. And one of the first things Ruben said to me is, you know, you really got to make your own movies right now. And I reached into my bag and I pulled out my script and said, well, speaking of which, and then that it worked out in people's schedules. I shot this film in 10 days.
Wow.
People are like, impossible. Every person I hired to do my budget and my schedule said, there's no way you can make this film in 10 days. And I was like, you know what? I've got a bunch of theater actors. We can make this film in 10 days. I don't have time to rehearse it, but they know how to do what they do. I would say, you know what? We're going to shoot this like it's a play. We're going to run this whole 14-page scene. We're just going to shoot it straight through. And, you know, when you have people who have the chops, you can do that.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about the cast. I mean, mention some of the other people. I mean, what an incredible cast you put together.
I blessed Adeshala Osakalumi, who is playing Bobby, who's a Caribbean British ex-cop in the piece. Catherine Irby, that everybody knows and loves from Law and Order, and she's also a big theater actress, playing my best friend Lily, Luba Mason, and Ruben Blades, who play a couple. Jake O'Flaherty, who's one of my oldest friends from LA, who came in to do it. Catherine Curtin, who's in everything, Homeland, Stranger Things, Insecure, Orange is the New Black, came on. Also Colby Minifie, who did Fear of the Walking Dead with me and Ruben. So that was my cast. Lunye Hodge, who does a lot of movies, did makeup. T. Skoll is composing the score. He does all of Julie Taymor's film. Everything Elliot Goldenthal does. He scored Selma. He is scoring my feature. Paul Sue of Lady Bird, Motherless Brooklyn, Salt is doing the sound design. We had Scott Snell, an Emmy Award-winning drone operator, Jonathan Proctor, Peabody Award-winning editor, Vicky Gold, Katie Rosen, both of my producers, Gabriella Ludlow, producer, Doris Cassapp, who was VP of HBO programming for 27 years, one of the executive producers. It's an incredible team.
See, it can be done. You know, like you said, there were naysayers early on. You're like, no, this can all be done if you just take it on with the right group of people and you can get this done. So congratulations for that.
Thank you.
What is the film? And tell me what the story is.
So I play a character named Cassandra. And if you don't know the mythology of Cassandra, Cassandra is the character who Apollo cursed that she would speak prophetic truth, and never be believed. And that is kind of the story of my life. I'm always speaking about truths and called the crazy person, from, you know, leaving Mother Courage to the essay I just wrote about why I'm fed up with performative activism from white and Black theater makers. I was someone who was very clear about who was going to win the 2016 election. And I had a very clear sense of what was going to happen with this election. And so I wrote a movie about a group of multicultural progressives who are positive and sure of how it's going to go. And they decide to go canvassing the weekend of the election. And it just doesn't go the way they thought it would.
I have goosebumps again, just having you explain what it's all about. Where did you film the movie? It looks fabulous.
The story takes place in Virginia. So we filmed it in upstate New York. We had the height of the fall foliage. So it was so beautiful. And, you know, there's those 17th century houses that make you feel like you're in Virginia.
Yeah. It's fascinating. I love the period. It was around Halloween time, wasn't it, that you did this?
Literally, the election this year takes place the weekend of Halloween. And I had a vision that we were going to shoot it the weekend of Halloween, and we did. Our first day of shooting was Halloween.
Wow. How long was the post-production?
Post-production, about 9 months of post-production. That is the biggest thing I've learned in making a movie, is that it is so easy to get all your friends together and put on a play. But when you want to make a movie, there's all these other people. It's like, oh, I can't do that part. Yeah. So post has definitely been a big learning experience, a big learning curve. And all these amazing people, Jonathan Proctor, Paul Sue, T. Skoll, Technicolor is doing our color. Shahriar Rahman and Manish are doing our VFX. Great VFX. Just, you know, I love a horror, scary, violent, not too much blood. I don't really like a lot of blood, but there is a little blood.
You know, I am sure the film will affect an even broader range of people watching it now from when you originally wrote it. I mean, with everything that's going on in the world. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, one of the things that I've had to talk to my team about is we were doing our turnovers, and we are going back in to do some changes, because when I wrote it, people were like, "Oh, that's so far-fetched, so cool." And so I was like, okay, that's my Cassandra curse, that people don't believe me. They don't think that this thing that I'm talking about could be possible. So had we released in March when we intended to, it would have, we had this sort of very light kind of ha 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 kind of score. Oh yeah, isn't that a dystopian future, but not very likely. And now things that are in my movie are everyday news. It is de rigueur. It's no longer just something that's far-fetched to anyone. And so I said, we have to score it that way, because now this is in the public's consciousness, and we have to, from the beginning, say, we know what we're talking about. We know this is what's on your mind right now. And we know you are scared to death. And this is that movie where you can see some of your worst nightmares come to pass and leave knowing that you are still safe and well, but you can have that emotional release at this movie. Yeah.
You know, you have worked with so many incredible directors on stage, screen, and television. Who were some of the ones that influenced you as being a director on this film?
Well, definitely Ava DuVernay, because she said she never went to film school, and she just said she made a movie. And I looked at her video one day, and I remember I said, you know, I need a sign that I should just go ahead and make this movie. And literally that night I went out to an Actors Fund performance of, oh gosh, why am I not going to remember the name of it? Waiting, the Israeli play, you know, the musical. What was the musical? What's it called?
Oh, the Band's Visit.
Band's Visit. It was like my 4th time seeing it. And I won a trip to Antigua for like 9 days. And I was writing a story about Antigua. So I shot a short in Antigua, and I was like, oh, the universe is saying, yeah, you're a filmmaker. And so between Ava DuVernay, I was like, yeah, I can do this. And I had been shadowing television for 4 years, shadowing directors, really was clear that I could do it with my eyes closed. but also hitting that ceiling that women hit, that African Americans hit, that they were not going to give me the job because the line of people who were in front of me was too long. And so I was like, well, you know what? I know I can do it. So I'm going to say yes to myself. And that's what I did.
That's wonderful. What advice would you have? We have filmmakers and actors who want to make their own work watching today. What advice would you give them about moving forward with their own projects?
My advice is stop looking for approval before you do it. Trust that you have a vision and that is the vision that there's somebody else who wants to see. So say yes to yourself, get started, and all the other people will come along. If they answered your call or returned your email, that shows you they're interested. You don't care whether they liked it. You care that they're interested enough to want to work with you. And that's all you need, is a bunch of people who want to work with you rather than a bunch of people who like it. What is their liking it going to do? That is the biggest thing I learned about this. I've written so many scripts and sent them around and taken people's notes and tried to fix and fix and fix. And this is the first time that I wrote something and I went, you know what? I see this. And I said, I'm going to make it. And even things that people didn't understand and didn't get, when I went forward with it and then showed it to them, and then they're like, oh, that's what you're doing? Had I been waiting for them to understand or been writing for them to understand, they weren't going to get it, because this is something. It's like all of us as artists are trying to bring something into reality that is inside of us that nobody can see. So we're trying to make it tangible. You have to trust that part of the process. People won't be able to see it until you have achieved your full vision of it.
See, when you look back at great filmmakers or great writers or whatever, they always have to explain their work to somebody before it gets done or while they're working on it, which is, I'm sure, so frustrating that, like you said, just believe in it and make your own.
Well, it's why Stanley Kubrick went to London and just started cutting and doing things himself, because he was tired of having to answer to people. Also, Hitchcock, gosh, I should be so lucky to be included with them. But there's this sense that the vision is very singular. And once other people start filtering in, it gets diluted, and there's a purity to that vision that you gotta at least get to see it.
Yeah. Well, like I said, congratulations on this incredible film. I cannot wait to see the entire film. You know, I want you to talk about your very successful podcast series, You Can't Say That. How did it come about, and what did you want to achieve with it?
Dori Berenstein is a producer who I have great love and respect for. And we have lunch every now and again, and she told me she had this idea to create the Broadway Podcast Network and create one place for you to find all things podcast theater. And she offered me this opportunity. And I had done a podcast series, both audio and visual, the year before, of 46 podcasts called the Me Too Dialogues on the Shift Network, where I interviewed the Callisto founders, the Tequitable founders. I interviewed Rudy Mazzocchi, who's a tech billionaire, Michael Beckwith, all of this around sexual assault and harassment in the workplace. And the feedback from that was so great. People just thought I was just kind of gifted at this, that when Dori said that, I thought, okay, let me bring some of the people that I find interesting to conversations. And what I feel like I have a gift about is I'm really curious and interested in people. And so people end up sharing stories with me that they may have never spoken. And so it's this opportunity for people to be the fly on the wall in very intimate conversations about things that you wouldn't find in your everyday life. Yeah. So I've got psychonauts and therapists and police officers and actors and directors and playwrights, but I'm just curious about everybody. So those are the kind of people that I bring to my podcast.
Well, it's a wonderful podcast. I listen to you all the time.
Thank you.
Would you also talk about the importance of this election this November, what it means for people to register and vote?
I just did a video about this. I'm a Cassandra, and so I have to be really, I can't make things up. People died so that we could have the right to vote. So I think whenever you have a right, you have to exercise it. And voting is a privilege that the Republican Party has publicly said if everybody voted, they would never win. And so we have to know that your vote is important, but it is not enough. And voting in a presidential election is not enough. You must vote in all of your local elections, your school councils, your city councils. If you have the time and the inclination, put yourself forward to be an elected official, but it is not enough to vote. Yes, vote early, vote often, get your mail-in votes going. But remember, the path for fascism was laid under G.W. Bush's election. That letter that, gosh, I forget that, I think is the lawyer that gave the presidency these executive powers. The path for fascist dictatorship was already laid. And I believe that no matter who we get this fall, we are on a path for that. And so we may get who we want in the White House, but no matter what, the work, it will just be beginning. So be prepared to keep working. It doesn't end on November 4th. That is the beginning. And the work to rebuild what has been destroyed over the last 4 years is going to be harder than ever, because it is easy to destroy and very hard to build. And hopefully we are going to build something better, something that works for more of us going forward, because this pandemic has showed us what lack of foundation we have had in this country to protect the citizens of this country. This is a country that was founded on opportunity for everyone to fulfill their dreams. And this pandemic has laid bare that that dream is not a possibility for most of Americans.
Beautiful. Brilliant advice. Thank you for sharing that, Tonya.
I know, I went on and on and on.
No, I love that. I mean, this is a big election for everybody, and everybody should realize their voice counts. If everybody used their voice, you can make
every day, though, not just on election day. Use it every day.
Yeah, perfect. One of the many things I admire the most about you is you don't just say that you're going to do something that you're passionate about, you actually do it. So how did your hashtags of Black Perspectives Matter and your hashtag of Other Perspectives Matter come about?
Well, I've been Black all my life, and I've been in the business since I'm like 13 or 14. So one of the things that I've come up against is walking into rooms or into hair and makeup offices or wardrobe offices where my perspective, my experience just was discounted. When I was on As the World Turns and All My Children, they didn't have people who knew how to do my hair. I would do movies and my hair would fall out at the end of the movies. So I had to learn to pay people to do my hair and makeup. And so a lifetime of that, and of when I got to have enough success that I could contractually put it in that I could sit in on certain meetings or have things in my contract, I realized the importance of having that perspective in a place of power. And so on Mother Courage, I thought that I had that position because I was concluded in the beginning in decision making. But when it came down to it, that position didn't really have much power. So I think that the movement for Black Lives and Black Lives Matter, which have been around for 14 years, have been laying this seed and this foundation for us to understand that, yes, Black Lives Matter. And the reason that's important is because Black people fight for everybody. We wouldn't have public school education if it wasn't for Black people fighting for it. We fight for everybody, and we fight for, other people, other perspectives. They all matter. And I truly know in my heart that when we open ourselves up to all of the perspectives, it's going to be an enriching life for us. Right now, this narrow perspective of white sovereignty is filtering all this amazing stuff, and you're getting this very, very distilled version of it. When you open the floodgates, there's just so much more for everybody to have. So that's what it came to be, this awareness of what people lose when they don't want to, when their fear keeps them from acknowledging the validity of other perspectives. And that's also what I try to bring in my podcast, is to bring voices that people would not normally go and talk to. And even when I disagree with them, John Franklin and I, he's a police captain. We go toe to toe about about things. He's a blue lives matter kind of guy. We go toe to toe for people to get to see that you can disagree with people and still be friends. The movie, you know, one of the challenges is I feel like it's got that Get Out thing where white people see one movie and black people see another. I get to, in this movie, show white people how they are seen by others. And in some of the feedback of people who've watched the film, they're like, well, I don't like that. Well, that's awkward. That's uncomfortable. I'm like, well, that's how you look to me.
Yeah.
So it's this opportunity to bring people into a world that they don't have to see because the world is set up in such a way to make them comfortable. Well, if you want to see my movie and expand your consciousness, you can see something that you're only going to benefit from knowing that this is the reality that's going on, even though you've got blinders on, because you don't have to see it because it isn't affecting your day to day.
I love it. Like I said, I can't wait to see the whole film. You know, many people were supposed to make their Broadway debuts this spring, and then the pandemic hit. So I really hope when theater comes back bigger and better than ever, I hope they can make their debuts. Broadway debuts are really special. Yours was in the Stephen Sondheim musical, Merrily We Roll Along, for director Harold Prince. What do you remember about your debut, Tonya?
I have to say, you know, my clairvoyance once again. I was cast in Merrily We Roll Along when I was at Carnegie Mellon. I was a freshman. And I was cast over Christmas break. I went to a cattle call in the city of Chicago, where I'm from. Joanna Merlin was there, and she invited me to New York to audition for Hal and Steve. And I was cast, and the show wasn't going to start for another year. And people would be like, "Oh my God, you're going to be on Broadway!" And I'm like, we'll see. We'll see. And that was the way I felt about it. I just was always like, we'll see. I did not ever have the sense of, oh my God. I was like, we'll see. So that's my curse. And it's funny because Hal, I need water.
Do you have it there?
A letter that I wrote to him.
Yeah.
That I gave him a pep talk at 19. And it's in his archive. It's like, I knew that a time would come for this show. I knew it at 19. I knew it was early. I knew the world wasn't ready to see this truth.
Wow. Do you want to go get a water? Go get a water.
Get some water.
Yeah. This is what happens when you go live. This is really great. Tonya's going to get some water and step out for a second, and she'll be right back.
So I don't choke to death live.
No. So I didn't know what it was like, what your whole experience was like with that show, because it's a musical that people fell in love with afterwards. And I felt that. Interesting.
I knew it was ahead of its time. I knew the world wasn't ready to see an anti-hero yet.
Yeah.
1981. We hadn't done anti-heroes like we have now.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, you won your Tony Award for the role of Anita in the musical Jelly's Last Jam for director George C. Wolfe. What made that experience so special for you, Jelly's Last Jam?
I say that I earned my stripes on Jelly's Last Jam. It was so many obstacles. I mean, I got fired from that show so many times. And I had a vision of how I needed to play it. And no matter how many times they were like, no, do it different or whatever, that never came from George.
Yeah.
I just held to it. And it was like, you know what? I just know this is the truth of who this has to be. And if I don't get to do it this way, then I just won't get to be in it. So I think it's a great story. I met George when he was an NYU grad, and I was on a soap opera. And I was doing my very first nightclub act at Sweetwater's. Do you remember Sweetwater's?
Oh, yes.
Up on Amsterdam Avenue.
Yeah.
Where Whitney Houston had her first 6 concerts at 16, and I got to be there for every one of them. So I was doing my first nightclub act, and Catherine Bostick said, "You've got to meet my friend George Wolfe." And so she sent me to George. I'm sitting at his apartment. He's showing me what would become the Colored Museum. And I'm like, oh my God, this man is a genius. He's got to write my nightclub act. I want these kind of monologues in my thing. Well, he wrote me the most beautiful nightclub act about my family history. There were no character monologues like the Colored Museum. And I really was wanting something like that. However, I expressed that to him, offended him so greatly that he did not come to my show and he did not speak to me for the next 7 years, during which he became the George C. Wolfe. And I could not get arrested. So when he became the head of the public, he was directing Caucasian Chalk Museum. And someone was leaving, and I got an offer to replace her. And that was like the olive leaf, like I was going to get back in the George C. Wolfe world. I went in, I replaced Cynthia Martell, brilliant actress. And one day George was like, I need you to come in and come to Susan Birkenhead's house and read this scene and learn this song. That was normal back then. You know, you were always showing up at people's houses to sing songs for them to work things out. I thought I was just helping him out with something. The scene was like a ba-dum-bum scene. I learned the song. Next thing I know, I get an offer to do this show at the Taper. I have not read a script until I get on the plane. I've got a baby that I'm nursing. I'm on a plane. I'm reading this play. And it's like, oh my God, this is a woman. I've never played a woman. I've only played ingenues. This is like my grandmother, my mother. Am I up to this? I then get to the rehearsal and learn that everybody else on the show has been working on it for 2 years. This is a tight group. And Patty Holly, brilliant dancer, had been playing Sweet Anita, and she was now in the chorus as a honey. It was a hostel room, and I became terrified. I was a turtle. I went into my shell. I would go home at night and fantasize and work out everything I was going to do. And I'd come to rehearsal and go through the motions. And I could see everybody rolling their eyes like, really? Brought this to be here? Like, you know, and they were like, she's terrible. You could just feel the terrible energy in the room. And I told myself, if I could just get to the first run through, which was scheduled, you know, at the beginning, if I could get through the first run through, I could go through everything I dreamed of. But I was afraid I couldn't do part of it because if I got a note, I would lose all my confidence and I wouldn't be able to do anything. Well, the night before the first run through, Mary Bond Davis was having a cabaret in Hollywood and all the cast was going. And George Wolfe and my cars arrived at the parking lot at the same moment. George told me later that he had planned to fire me the next morning. But because our cars arrived at the same moment, he took it as a sign that he should let me do the run through.
Oh.
And so I did that run through and I did everything I'd been dreaming of at home and that I had been too scared to show even a glimpse of it. And all hell broke loose. People were like, not only can we not discount her, this bitch is going to have to be reckoned with.
I had never heard that story before.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's really special to me because it was a growing up. It was a coming of age for me.
So winning the Tony Award for Jelly's Last Jam must have been like the icing on the cake for you.
It was totally, you know, my publicist at that time was Lynn Fink. We lost him to HIV.
Yeah.
And even at that time, it was Gregory Hines. It was Keith Davis, Annette Ducanay. Who else was there? Ruben Santiago Hudson. It was this amazing cast. And even when we got to Broadway, I was not considered important. And there really wasn't doing a lot of press for me. But Lynn Fink and I, we would sit down and we'd write stories and we'd send pictures and we did it for months and nobody was running anything. When I got that first nomination, which was probably a Drama Desk nomination, the first nomination I'd ever had for anything in my life, suddenly all these stories that Lynn and I had been sending out for months started hitting. And I was in People magazine 6 weeks in a row. And, you know, I say that Lynn campaigned and we campaigned for that Tony. And then even the Friday before the Tony, Frank Rich wrote in the Friday Times, Tonya Pinkins should win, but she will not. So I just went in this beautiful gown that Gene London, who had collected all these movie star gowns from the movies at the studios, he put me in this blue velvet and Gene London's thing was, it was about you make the body you want to have for the gown. So he had these little ladies who would sew the corset on you in the shape that you wanted to have in the dress. And then we put the dress on. It was my first time ever getting Harry Winston jewels. I had on $1 million worth of Harry Winston jewels, which, you know, you get to return at the end of the night. They have guards all night long. And I just went like getting to be fairy tale Cinderella glamour for the night. And that was as good as it gets. Another piece, the producers only bought me tickets to the Tonys, not to the party afterwards. So when I won, my manager at the time just took me over. There was like, she just won. Let her in this party.
Wow. I knew Gene London. He used to dress all, I love that. What a great story.
I love Gene.
But what a history. You know, George C. Wolfe, you worked with numerous times. I think like 5 different times or more than that.
6 times.
So you started out one way where he was going to fire you, then became one of the greatest directors you ever worked with. What does George mean to you, and what makes him such a brilliant director and friend to you?
He's a genius artist.
Yeah.
He's funny. He is also clairvoyant. George can read you and read your life. Yeah. You know, like he can just tell you things about yourself. And he's a little kid at heart. So working with him is always going to be fun and funny. Tech is going to be funny. He has such a love of actors that he respects what we have to get up there and do. So he's going to make it great for you. Even the boring, horrible 12 hours of tech. He may be screaming at the tech people, but you don't ever experience that as an actor from him. He really, really loves actors, and he's a genius. He's read everything. He has an insight into the human condition. You know, even talking to some of his designers, Robin Wagner, Jules Fisher, they just say, I'm just George's hand doing what George wants to do. Visionary beyond. So many things that are like life mantras are quotes from George C. Wolfe, like brilliance lies in the moment that might not work. That's George C. Wolfe. I would not have the career I had if it were not for George C. Wolfe. I'm very outspoken. I'm very honest. Most people aren't comfortable with that. I think after our initial thing where he got mad at me from the concert, he just got to know who I was and to respect my artistry and to understand that if I was speaking something, it was just my truth. He could take it or leave it. And so we could just be like, George, I don't like that, but I don't care. I don't want your opinion. Nobody asked you anyway. And we could just keep going on. And so that, I love that. I love that we can have this creative friction and he can hear me and he can take it or leave it. But that is what excites me about the work, is I want to have people tell me what they don't like and then I can work with it. It's respectful to me to trust that I can distinguish your taste and decide. Like, I don't have to lose all my confidence because you don't like it or you disagree with me. I can go, what's valid in that? Is there something that I need to add because of that? George is the one person who I can say he can take it. And he's going to take whatever you give him and he's going to make it into something better.
See, he likes that back and forth, like that artistic energy.
I can't say he likes that.
Well, he likes it with you.
I will say that he has allowed me to do that with him, and I appreciate that.
I love it. Well, you know, some of your greatest roles have been directed by George C. Wolfe. We have to talk about Caroline or Change. I mean, you got to work with George again, Tony Kushner, Janine Tesori, Hope Clark. I mean, what did that role and that show mean to you? And how challenging and rewarding was that role for you, Tonya?
That role was the most effortless thing I've ever done in my career.
Wow.
It was the first time that I had been given a container that was big enough for all that I am. And, you know, it was one of those things that I learned a lesson that you can't allow yourself to be diminished by other people's ideas of you. So everybody else thought it was difficult and made me have to do all these things that made them secure. And so it ended up affecting me adversely. But I didn't ever have to even take a script home. It was like, that was made for me. Like Janine designs songs like a tailor does a suit. It was just an easy show for me to do. People thought, wasn't that so hard? No, it was like, I get to go and have all that energy every night. I get to release that every night. I left relaxed and like, woo, yes, I get to let everything go. The greatest gift, a show that touched people's hearts and souls in a most profound way. People's lives were changed by seeing that show, by, you know, most of the time I do things and people say, oh my God, you're so strong. And people love that. And then they spend a lot of time trying to soften my edges and make me, you know, soften me up. George Wolfe never told me that I had to make her likable. And I think the power of how I portrayed Caroline or Change is that I was able to show you my naked, raw rage, resentment, vulnerability, let you see me in all of that naked ugliness, and every single person in the world has a piece of that. And so it was healing to get to see that and to go, oh, and I can still be worthy and I can still be lovable, even with that inside of me. So to me, it was a kind of a holy mission to get to do that. And, you know, I'm sure it'll be done very differently because people like to make sure Black people are likable, and we got to make her likable. And that's another way to do it. And the music is extraordinary. The story is extraordinary. And you can just go have a happy time watching that show and go home and not be affected and just go, oh, that was so pretty. What great music. I really liked everybody. My Caroline was not someone you were going to like. It was someone you were going to fear and go, yeah, that's in me too.
Yeah. See, it must have been great because she was created on you, for you. I mean.
No, she was not.
Oh, she wasn't.
Tony Pinkins wrote this play because he wrote it. Actually, he wrote this entire script in verse. And then Bobby McFerrin from the San Francisco Opera was the first person who was supposed to compose it. And it was with Bobby McFerrin for a very long time. And then the rights reverted. So score-wise, yes, it was scored on me. But that book, that is Tony's, you know, that is his semi-autobiographical tale. And George was like, Tonya Pinkins, there's this part you need to play. And this one, she is a nanny for this little Jewish boy. And he tells her that the president's going to drop a bomb on them. And she says, as she's frying some chicken, hell is a very hot place. And that's where Jews go when they die. And then she drops the chicken in the bucket. You need to play that part. And I was like, what does that mean?
But I love the way George explains it, though. It's like, I want to go on that ride.
Yeah.
Well, I want to get into the Wild Party, too. I love Michael John LaCusa's. I love both Wild Parties. I mean, you got to work with George again. Are there favorite memories that you have of working on the Wild Party?
Yeah. First of all, Mark Kudish, Jane Summerhays, Toni Collette, Michael McElroy, Nathan Lee Graham. I mean, that cast, Eartha Kitt, Ching Valdez, the cast, just that you get to be on stage with them. And, you know, most of the time when you're on Broadway, you go on stage, you go off stage, you're backstage for long periods of time. We were on stage every moment of that play, which as an actor, the craft of getting to work for 90 straight minutes and to have to be alive for 90 straight minutes was amazing, amazing. So that was a thrill. What else was great about it? You know, that was another one where, you know, my little sense was, you know, I kind of just knew that that was ahead of its time too. And if you think about it, that show laid the path for a lot of other things. This real time kind of show. I think Caroline and Wild Party made a next to normal possible. Yeah. You know? So I think George and Michael John ahead of their time, always ahead of their time. Michael John is one of the most extraordinary composers we have. He does not get the credit he deserves. And he's somebody who I just kind of understand those harmonics and where they're going. Toni Collette, extraordinary actress. Her eyes tell you everything.
I loved it. I loved everything about it. You know, you also starred in one of my favorite musicals, Play On.
Oh, my baby, Play On.
So Lady Liv is one of your favorite roles, or is your favorite role, isn't she?
She's my favorite in the sense that I got to be dramatic and I got to be funny. And people don't let me get to be funny very often. And I got to be funny as Lady Liv. And that was so great. And so few people saw that show, except in the regional theaters where it broke box office records and paid for seasons. That is one of the the greatest underrated, underseen shows around. Extraordinary music, Cheryl Wolfe's book, Sheldon Epps' direction. There were like 6 show-stopping numbers in a row. We had Carl Anderson, one of the great R&B singers of the world, rest his soul. Yvette Casson, one of the greatest jazz singers around. Larry Marshall and Andre DeShields, Rocks in My Bed, stopped the show every night. It was like literally show-stopping number after show-stopping number. We got the best reviews of that season. Yeah. If that producer hadn't closed that show before the Tony voters could get in, we would have won that Tony.
Because I was going to ask you with your Cassandra mind, why do you think, I love that show and people who saw that show loved that show. Why do you think it didn't last?
Mitchell Maxwell.
Okay.
There it is.
Yeah, totally.
That's why. Just like that person in the White House, just likes chaos. Likes chaos. Will cut off his nose to spite his face for the sake of some chaos.
I love you. I love that you're just so honest and you just tell it as it is. You should. I mean, you have this career and it's like, I never could figure out. I adored that musical. And like you said, there was one showstopper after another and you were all just brilliant in that, yet it didn't last. So I just hope that, there's another life to play on.
Well, let me tell you the other piece why there's no life for that to play on. Yeah. I'm not talking out of turn. There's, Equity has said that people can't work for him because he stranded companies out of town. He did not ever merge the rights for that show. It doesn't even exist as a show to be licensed. If anybody wanted to do that show again, they'd have to go back and negotiate rights with every single license holder, publisher to reconstruct that show.
Interesting.
An album of the show. It does not exist as a show to be licensed.
Well, the fans that are watching around the world are probably saying right now, I got to get on this. I got to find out more about Play On. So
there's an album of most of the show. There were a couple songs we couldn't put on the album because the rights hadn't been merged, but most of that show is in a beautiful album. Luther Henderson orchestrations extraordinaire.
Oh, I love Luther Henderson. Wow, what a team. Like I said, what a great team. You got to work with Kenny Leon a few times also, Radio Golf, and of course, Holler If You Hear Me. I mean, what was it like working with Kenny Leon and August Wilson on Radio Golf?
Radio Golf was challenging, a kind of not really finished play. Yeah. If you think about it, it was another one where it wasn't advertised well. This was the last play that we were ever going to get from August Wilson. That play should have ran forever just on the strength of that. There was never going to be another one ever. So just a lot of, poor decisions made with that. I have to say the same thing about Holler If You Hear Me. Poor marketing decisions. A show about Tupac who has sold like 8 million records worldwide. Marketing decision to not put Tupac's name up there. Thank you to the producers who decided that they would just give away all those tickets for a month. They gave those tickets away. So we played to non-paying, standing room ovations every night audiences. That show was fantastic. Yeah. And people loved it, and people didn't pay because it wasn't marketed to the right audience. The idea should have been to just market it to Tupac's audience, get them in the theaters, and have people going like, I can't get a ticket to that. I can't get a ticket to that, rather than trying to play to an audience that was never going to feel like that was right for them. Sometimes you have to, shut people out of something for them to be like, well, why can't I get in? Why can't I get in?
But it must have been great for you to have done August Wilson's last play, too. I mean, to have that. I mean, I loved that play.
Yeah, it's a beautiful play. But, how many people got to see it? Yeah. I also worked with August Wilson on my first professional play, which is The Piano Lesson. I worked with August and Lloyd at Yale before that play came to Broadway. So, yeah. So I got to work with August Wilson rather than just working on an August play. I actually got to be in the room with August Wilson.
You know, you have such a huge television base. I mean, you started out in the soaps. You know, these were roles that people watched you every day do or whatever. What did you learn the most from doing daytime soaps? Of course, from As the World Turns as Heather Dalton, and of course, Livia on All My Children. What did you take away from those years?
First of all, I grew up watching soap operas in Chicago, so I loved being on soap operas. Soap operas to me are like theater. It's this thing where you can be big in a way that you can't be in most episodic in films. And it's like, because there's this thing where the camera lights are turning on and you really only act when the camera light is on, because that's how the edit is being done. So you've got to make sure that when that camera light goes on, you've done something explosive, so that every time the camera light comes on you, it's like, I'm something fabulous to see. That is really the joys of soap operas. It's like, you can be big in a way that you can be on the stage, and you usually can't be in front of a camera, but you can be in a soap opera.
Were the directors like far away? Were they like voice of gods in like an editing room when you were doing soaps?
When you're shooting, they are, but they come down on the, you know, and they block it out and you rehearse it. You know, you do get a rehearsal. It's a very small rehearsal, abbreviated rehearsal, but you rehearse it because they've got to rehearse all those cameras moving. And when those cameras, you know, they're calling the edit live in the room. And so, yeah, you get to rehearse it, and you know when that camera is going to be on you. And so you're looking at that green light, and it's like, it's my moment to do something fabulous. So the camera wants to see me again.
I love that. That's going to be a whole different mindset.
It is. It is. And it is a good way to learn, you know, because you got to get the attention. If you don't, yeah, this is not going to work out.
Then they'll write your character out or recast you with someone else.
You'll go into the kitchen and never come out. that is a sort of beautiful thing. Like Walt Willey and I, we made a decision that we were going to play Love and Sex. We were never going to write it, but we were going to play it.
Yeah.
Subtle. We're partners in a law firm. They stopped putting us in scenes together.
It was too explosive.
They were like, we're not ready for that. No, this is our leading man. He's not going to be with a black woman.
That's fabulous stories. You know, I have to mention 3 of your TV roles because you have done so much work. I mean, I've only like just skimmed the top of the surface of your career. But, you know, we started talking about Madam Secretary before we went on the air. What did you call that role that you called her?
I was Madam Secretary on Madam Secretary. And we were talking about how the new SAG contract is all about the background players. But in this pandemic world, those roles are being cut out. They're trying to shoot things with just leading characters, losing out on even the guest starring characters. But I, as Madam Secretary, on a show called Madam Secretary, was one of the props that eats. Had very few lines. I was just in the background. It's like, I thought maybe, you know, I'm Madam Secretary. I'll get to do all the stuff Taya Leone got to do for 5 seasons. Work out like that.
I love that, though. And then, of course, Ethel Peabody on Gotham.
Oh.
How much fun I was obsessed with Gotham, as millions of people were. What was it like playing her and being in that whole world of Gotham?
So Gotham, when I got that was, I was only contracted for 4 episodes. And my first episodes were just me alone. And then BD came on, and I was with him on like the 3rd or 4th episode. And BD, which is a credit to him as a theater actor, because I didn't have this experience with some of the other actors on the show, or sometimes you're working with people. Writers are writing for relationship. If you and another character create a relationship and it looks juicy to them, they're going to write for it because that's what excites them. If they can see the chemistry, they can see. So they've got to create new stories every week. They're in a writer's room. If they see something happening and the fans are liking it, they're going to write to it. And so BD, who was contracted for the whole season, he was like, oh, we're going to make something here. And sure enough, BD and I, we would choreograph our entrances and exits, and I didn't have a lot of lines, but they ended up writing me all the way into the next season. But that is because BD didn't feel intimidated by the fact that I was there or that I could take away from him. And he uplifted me by giving attention to me and my importance to him. And the writers then wrote to that.
Of course, we're talking about the wonderful B.D. Wong.
Yes, we are talking about B.D. Wong.
I love that because I've spoken to other people who said the same thing. They were contracted for one episode or something, and then there was a chemistry or something happened, and even like the star of the show said, oh no, I want that character to go on. Or like you said, the writers who are like left in a room saying, where are we going to go for the rest of the season, see something that two theater actors do together. And create magic. But you loved living in that world of Gotham, didn't you?
I loved it. I love playing villains.
Yeah. Well, let's get into Fear the Walking Dead. I mean, talk about a fan base. Martha, what was it like living in that world also?
Well, I am a total zombie lover. I think that zombies are the metaphor for this capitalist incarceration, military, industrial prison complex. They are always there, and no matter how good you try to be, you can't ever escape them. So, you know, zombie world is, when I met my agents, Pete Kaiser at the Talent House, the first thing I said to him is, if I ever get any opportunity to be in anything zombie, I want to do it. So getting that audition, it was a self-tape that my son filmed, and, you know, months went by, and the writers for that show, they write audition scenes for characters that don't have anything to do with scripts. So they wrote the most fabulous scene for that character. Fabulous scene. I was like looking for the character. The character existed, but this whole world. So it was just this great scene that had all these twists and turns, where this woman had lost her dog and I had found it. And I was like, oh yeah, I just got to verify that you're who you say you are. And then, you know, after she's shown me her ID, I'm like, you know, helping people is not a good thing. And I tell her how she was the paramedic who told me that she was going to come help me with my husband, and he died waiting for her, and how my life had fallen to pieces. And then I go, and here's your dog. Gotta go. It was a great scene.
That is fabulous. Well, you know, there's a dream musical theater role. I think it's right behind me over here. Is she one of your dream roles to do?
Who is it back there? Let me put some glasses on so I can see who's there.
Ethel
Is it
Merman.
back there?
Ethel Merman.
I sang that song in one of my nightclub acts at Joe's Pub. That song is way harder than Lot's Wife, okay? Way harder than Lot's Wife. Lot's Wife was easy. That song is a killer.
We're talking about Gypsy, of course.
We are talking about Rose's turn.
Yeah. Is she a dream role that you want to take on?
I don't know. I could barely get through the song.
Merman was like a prize fighter. Merman, everybody who's done Gypsy, that's like the King Lear of musicals for women.
Oh yeah. I bow down to everybody who was able to do that, because that's no joke. That is no joke.
Well, I have to tell you, this hour has flown by. We are out of time. I have had the best time sitting with you, reminiscing. I mean, I just love your honesty of just saying what it is, you know, letting everything else fall behind. I mean, I think when theater comes back, hopefully it'll come back bigger and better than ever. I mean, what are your thoughts of theater coming back in this post-COVID-19, Black Lives Matter? How do you see it all coming back, Tonya? What are your thoughts at the moment?
I don't know when it's going to come back. It might not be till 2023. But when it comes back, it's going to be sold out. People are going to be dying to get in the room with people and to see that live things. They're going to be tired of screens. Yeah. They're going to want to see something live. They're going to want to see sweat. They're going to want spittle and sweat to fall on them. You know, they're going to want that live experience. And I can say that one thing that they will get to look forward to is that Brandon Jacob Jenkins and I have been working a while on a new adaptation of Mother Courage, and we have the estate's blessing to do what we want with it. And I have a very instinctual connection to Mother Courage as a mother of four, and many of the things that I said to Brian, I think that all the translations are wrong. Brian is fluent in German, and he went back and what I felt was brought, you know, he said that's what Brecht wrote. So looking forward to bringing a new Mother Courage to the world.
Oh, I cannot wait. That's a Broadway World exclusive. I am thrilled about that, to finally see your version of Mother Courage. Like I said, Tonya, the film is Red Pill. It gets released this fall. Everybody look for it. I love that shirt. I want one of those, neighbor. Just so you know, everybody stay safe. Tonya, I adore you, and I'll see you soon when I can actually hug you. Take care, everybody.
Thank you. Bye-bye.